You're in the C-Space studio. I'm James Kotecki, and I am here with Tom Kershaw, who's the Chief Product and Technology Officer at Rubicon Project, which I'm told operates one of the largest advertising marketplaces in the world.
You bet.
So that's pretty significant. What do you see, let's start with a broad question, what do you see as the state of the advertising marketplace today?
I think the advertising industry is going through an amazing period of change right now, and advertising tracks to eyeballs, right? So what drives changes in our industry is what drives changes in how people consume digital content. And I think right now is a massive amount of churn in how individuals interact to the digital economy. 5 years ago, it was browsers and computers and PCs. Now it's mobile devices and apps, and there is no concept of tracking or the user. So I think we as an industry are really changing and having to adjust not only what we communicate, but how we talk to users, because the old way of talking to users with video clips and TV and banner ads is really evolving towards a new, more interactive way of having that dialogue.
I mean, you mentioned the rapid change we've seen in just 5 years. Do you think 5 years ago it was possible to predict how things would shake out in the next 5 years? And you see where I'm going with this is is it even possible to know what's coming in the next 5?
I'm trying to figure out what's going to happen next week, and I haven't quite got there yet, but I think, no, it's impossible to anticipate some of the changes that have occurred. If you would think now, what are the 4 things people do in the digital economy? It's chat, social, commerce, and video. And I don't think 5 years ago we would have thought that. We were thought in terms of browsers and search and destinations and discovery and those types of things. Whereas now, social networks and who you know determines what you see just as much as what you think you want as a user. So it's really hard to predict.
So you mentioned that this requires a number of changes in the way that you communicate what's going on. And so what are some of the changes that you think people are making or maybe need to make but aren't?
Well, first, I think we need to talk to users in a punchier, faster, and more interactive way. Because when you're on a phone, you don't have 30 seconds to consume a piece of content with your undivided attention. In fact, I think there's no such thing as undivided attention anymore. So how can you tell your message in a way that's more subtle? So the format and way you communicate is one thing. The second is how you make advertising into information and how do you make it relevant? Because users they're not willing to sit through a bunch of irrelevant content the way they used to. Think about, when you're watching television with your family, the majority of the messages you'd see have no relevance to you whatsoever. Whereas now you can just turn that off. You can turn it off through ad blockers, you can turn it off through DVRs, you can turn it off through a number of things. So you have to work to get the attention and the respect of users now, which is a good thing.
Yeah, and so, I mean, you mentioned ad blockers. Is that something that, I know that this has been a concern in the industry for a long time. Is that something that concerns you? And do you think that we've reached peak ad blocker in terms of its effect on the industry, or are we still going to have challenges there and need to make some more changes?
I think the ad blocking phenomenon will start to taper down because the industry is finally listening for the first time. And I think that for years, the industry talked about buyers and sellers and publishers and advertisers. The consumer wasn't really discussed, right? And so I think we have to, it's amazing how little consumer research we did as an industry and how little we paid attention to what users want. So now you hear buyers, sellers, everyone in the industry talking about user experience. And we in Rubicon are working really hard to let users express to us their preferences, so you're showing them what they want to see. And if you're showing users what they want to see and something that's relevant, that's how advertising becomes information instead of clutter and junk.
When you look at some of that preference data that you guys get, are there any surprises in there or counterintuitive things that jump out at you that you might not have known before you did that kind of research?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that every user is different, and users are fickle. And so, I mean, just using data to make decisions about how we talk to users is a really good start. And I think we're just beginning to have that dialogue, and it's going to take time for us as an industry to kind of incorporate all of it.
Is it fair to say that we're kind of, because I mean, everybody talks about data. It's another thing to actually use it to make actually insightful decisions. Are we in a kind of data or technology arms race, as it were? And how do you actually win in a situation like that?
I think it's the opposite. I think that we talk about data in this industry all the time, and the way I would put it is we don't have a not enough data problem, we have a too much data problem. Until we figure out how to use the data we have, it's like this Midas thing where we're gathering as much data as we can and putting it in a pile in the closet and hoarding it. and not using it. So I think the problem we have is that data lives in silos. Buyers and brands have a bunch of data, agencies have data, publishers have data, but you can't draw a line between those things. And so you need to develop neutral third parties that can create an exchange of information so the audience that the brand wants to buy can get translated into the impressions the publishers have to offer. And we've not done a good job of doing that as an industry, and I think 2017 will be the year where you really start to see audience work end to end across the stack.
And so can you explain to me from the consumer or the audience's perspective, like how does that actually look in practice in the way that I'm interacting with media or ads or marketing on my day-to-day life?
Audience to a user should mean relevance. I mean, it's a code term for relevance. It says advertisers have decided that this type of person would like to know about this shoe or this car, and where we get it wrong is we show you a car ad and you bought a car last week, or we showed you a shoe ad for shoes you would never wear. So audience is just kind of industry speak for relevance and making sure that the information is only shown to you that you need to see. And I think another way of putting it is we show way too many ads in this industry right now. We should cut our ads, the ads we display, by 1,000%, and make the ones that we do display much more relevant and powerful. That's where we need to go.
How does native advertising or kind of native content fit into this matrix of what you're talking about?
Native is, to me, huge innovation that's really important for one major reason, which is that users like it. Users don't find it disruptive, and for the most part, native allows users to do what they want to do and skip through it and consume advertising content if they choose to. And making it a choice, not a mandate, is really important to the future of advertising. That said, the thing you're concerned about with advertising is making sure that it is clear that it's advertising and not fooling people or tricking people into consuming something they don't want to. So I think we need to maintain the separation of ads and content, but we need to, the benefit of native is that users like it, and that's really important.
Is the holy grail that I as a consumer wake up one day, go through my entire day, see a lot of ads, but never really felt like I was being marketed to or advertised to?
Yeah, I think the panacea is that you just went through your day and you consume some ads, you consume some content, and you really don't know or care what the difference is. As long as it's fair and ingenious and not fraudulent, we want the choice in the hands of consumers.
Mm-hmm. So we're here at CES, we're here at C-Space at CES. What are some of the other ideas that you've heard percolating around or that you're excited to be talking about here?
Well, the biggest idea, we talked about some of them already. Audience and really allowing audience buys is the most important thing for 2017, and again, that means relevance to users. Format innovation is something that you really have to push as an industry. We have to collectively work to talk to users differently. Banners splashed in front of people that they can't click out of, gamers on their phone having to X out of interstitials. That needs to evolve towards formats that are friendlier to users and more and less intrusive.
I'll take a wild swing here because I don't know if you guys are working on this or involved in something like this, but VR, I mean, we see VR headsets everywhere around this conference. It seems to me that is an amazing opportunity to have a native ad experience or an immersive experience that you mentioned earlier, there's no such thing as undivided attention. In virtual reality, that may actually be like the last bastion of where you could actually get a consumer's full attention. Is that something that you think about or that you're looking toward in the coming years?
Absolutely. VR is something we talk about all the time as a vehicle to reach users, because wherever users want to spend their time, that's where we have to reach them. We should come to the user where they're comfortable. But I think if you take a VR experience and you impose a traditional television video to that user, you're going to miss the boat. You're going to alienate the user and make the entire experience worse. So we learned this from mobile. We have to develop communication mechanisms native, no pun intended, to the media. So I look for us to create new ways of using VR as a way to talk to users, maybe with placements and things like that.
Is there someone here at CES or just someone that you want to call out generally that's doing interesting, innovative work that maybe you guys personally don't have anything to do with?
Snapchat is doing really great things, I think, in terms of short-form content and bumpers and ads that tell users something quickly but let them get on with their life. I think that there's a whole bunch of unsung creators out there in the video space that are creating new forms of content and are creating new advertising formats that are really, really important. And one of the problems with our industry is, publishers can do great things and open up ad formats and slots, but until the creative community and the agencies and all those people come and embrace that, there's a time lag. So I think that those that are in the creative and agency space that are innovating and helping to adopt new formats quickly deserve a ton of respect.
And what's the relationship between creativity and technology? I mean, you think about technology and data as a way of driving creative decisions. There's some, some might have a concern that kind of drives the human element out of creativity. How do you see it?
I think technology is an enabler. I mean, and I think that there's no scenario where machines talking to machines can do everything. So we have to get the right balance of automating processes and taking manual work out of things while still allowing the human element to prevail.
As we wrap up here, a last lightning round question. What are you most excited about for 2017?
I'm most excited about enabling in-app advertising for brands. I think that the brand community has not fully embraced app as a format, and with these new innovations that we have in ways of talking to users, along with better audience segmentation, I think you're going to see the app as being and moving from kind of a third-class citizen in advertising to the anchor.
All right, Tom Kershaw from the Rubicon Project, thank you so much for joining us here in the C-Space studio.
Thanks for having me, I appreciate it.
All right, I'm James Kotecki. Keep it locked right here for more great C-Space studio content.